All right, this is probably the foundational component of my work. And I think something that applies to every single person ever. And that is, where do you fall in the framework of wounded to witness and witness to warrior? Everybody falls somewhere at some point in some way, right? So I want to do this sort of high level overview to help you figure out where you fall, what season you're in as far as on your life journey. If you are a Christian, for sure on your spiritual journey. And this will work for Christ followers and non-Christ followers alike. But I frame it more toward people who are trying to enhance their spiritual journey, their faith journey, as well as their emotional and mindset journey. Because what I find to be true is that the baggage you have in your life will translate in your relationships, and that also includes the relationship with your Heavenly Father, whether you have one or don't, whether you have a good one or you don't. So I want to really overview this and try to help those of you who are wanting to grow and not really sure where to go. So, wounded to witness, witness to warrior. Okay. Where are you on your spiritual journey? Okay. The wounded space, you have a lot of unprocessed pain. This is where I find most people are. I was here 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago. Unprocessed pain. And so, what ends up happening when you have unprocessed pain is that you have either a lot of repressed memories, emotions, situations. You haven't faced certain difficulties in your life, in your journey, in your story. And so what ends up happening is that you're functioning without realizing it on the level of like an emotional 2 to 10-year-old. And I know that that's not supposed to be offensive. I don't want to offend anyone. I just want to make you aware that you can be physically 50 years old and emotionally two if you park at the point of that pain. The difficulty with 0 to 7 years old is that pain that was experienced in that time frame lodges deeply in your subconscious. And that's because of how the brain develops and functions. So if you have sort of deep subconscious wounds, it's a lot harder to come out of this wounded space, right? And I'll give you an example of a deep subconscious wound. When I was 3, my parents divorced. And that is old enough for a young Michelina to know that where is daddy? Where is my dad? Right? And so the abandonment and the neglect wound that I experienced my entire life came out of this really, it's technically a little T event, little trauma event. Divorce is pretty, standard in our lives now, but I was old enough that I marked the abandonment. And so sometimes you have unprocessed pain because you don't even know that pain exists. You don't even know that's something that's painful to you. You don't even know. You don't, how could you? Right? So there can be, especially in this wounded space, a lot of investigation that has to go on for you to figure out what is going on with me, right? Without realizing it, your identity is shaped by these things that happen to you. Like, so for myself, I didn't know for a very long time that I had borderline personality disorder. It came out of this very deep abandonment neglect wound that I had received as a child. I did not know. It was, perpetuated by like continual social bullying. I was someone who was never really accepted in crowds. People did not like me. I would walk in a space and upset people. I did. I didn't know why that was. I just knew there was something wrong with me that people did not like. And so my identity was shaped from this space of woundedness. And I did not know any of that, consciously or subconscious. I had no idea until I was sitting in a jail cell. And I'm like, how did I get here? And why did I make these decisions? And what is going on? And I like, it's almost like waking up out of a not a coma, but like waking up out of a low level of understanding and coming into a higher level of understanding. And so and it was in a jail cell that I started to really be like, wait, how did I end up here? Like I was on the right track for everything. I had done all the right things. Like I don't understand. And so I had to really do a deep dive on, well, what the heck is going on here? And so the identity component of a lot of people, I ask them all the time, I'm like, who are you? Like on a connection call. And they're like, I don't know how to answer that. And I'm like, right, because we don't get a lot of that in our journeys. We don't get a lot of people trying to help us figure out who we are. We get a lot of people trying to figure out how they can shape us into what they want us to be. So identity often is shaped by our pain, what happened to us. And so the wounded space is where many, many, many people function out of. Once you realize, hey, I have some wounds here. I have some things that I need to look at. I have some concerns. I've got some problems. Um, then you can start diving into it. Highly suggest therapy, coaching, self reflection work, listening to podcasts. Depends on how you learn. Most of the time, at some point, these things need a verbal outlet. Communication out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So, a lot of the times, it needs a verbal outlet so that people can reflect back to you what's actually going on. But once you start kind of like investigating your wounds and you start kind of sitting in that, and it doesn't feel so scary anymore, and it doesn't feel so overwhelming, and it doesn't feel like something you have to run away from, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You start to integrate your pain, and you start to kind of let it shape your strength, and you start to become more aware of patterns in your life, and you start to be like, oh wow, this is something that I do a lot, or oh wow, this is something that I don't do a lot. And so you kind of just start kind of coming into just being. It's like, okay, well, you're just like, okay, I'm doing the best I can with what I've got. I'm trying here. You start realizing places where you were like maybe performing or functioning out of your worth being tied to your work. Um, you start to kind of notice things about yourself like that. We'll talk about that. The warrior space is where everybody ideally would end up. Okay. You know who you are. Specifically, if you are a Christian, you know who you are in Christ. You know who you are in yourself. You know why you're here. You know what you're doing. You're not worried about it. It makes sense to you. You're like, you can tell me whatever you want, but I know me better than you know me. So I'm going to do what the Lord tells me to do. Thank you. It's a very, very firm foundation. It's very rooted. Your pain, you're aware of it, you know it exists, you know this hurts, you don't care. You're gonna do it anyway. It does not matter. Yes, it hurts, we're gonna go do it. It's warrior mentality, right? Your emotions, you don't fear them. You're like, hey, these are good tools, this helps me know what's going on, love it. The metaphor I use all the time is your morals drive the car of your life, your logic drives like sits in your passenger seat, and your emotions are in the back seat, right? The warrior phase, I tend to call the authentic steward leader. Somebody who knows who they are, they're self aware, they know how to make good decisions, they are good at communication, they are aligned with their inner value system, they take action out of those values, and they are about their father's business. They are doing the work for the kingdom. They are steward. They know they own nothing, not even themselves, and they want to do the work and the will of the Lord. That's deep level warrior. It's very confident. It is very humble. It's like I'm not better or worse than anybody else, but I do know who I am, right? And it is a really solid, firm foundation and a place that I highly suggest everybody work to get to. So, with that sort of very high level overview, where are you in the journey? And I'm going to give you some more depth of understanding to help you figure that out if that overview didn't do it for you. So let's dive in more deeply. What does it look like to be wounded in your daily life, very practically? First thing is you're in survival mode. You are, your nervous system is in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Okay. Fight is like everything's a battle. Flight is I can't deal with my life. Freeze is like, what do I do? And fawn is like, oh, let me just make this better. Let me just make this, let me just do whatever I need to do to make this okay. Right? You're in survival mode. Everything is a threat. Everything feels temporary, like it could be taken from you. There's no stability, there's no security. Um, it could be from how you were raised. It can be from abuse that you've suffered. It could be from experiences that you've had. Okay. A lot of times we experience this in sort of transition. So, like if you had a job and then you lost it, now you're in survival mode because you're like, oh my God, I relied on that job so much. Or if you had a relationship and it didn't end well and you weren't expecting it to end at all, you might become in survival mode, quite literally, because you had two incomes and now you have one. So there's circumstantial survival there, but there's also emotional and mental survival there. And so the core question that you're asking yourself, whether you are aware of it or not, is how do I protect myself? I'm not safe. How do I protect myself? I don't have what I need. How do I get it? And in this space, a lot of the time, pain is repressed, it's unprocessed, you're not aware of it, or you act like it doesn't exist. And so that can be from anything. It can be from bullying as a child, it can be from sexual abuse, it could be from losing a parent or a loved one, it could be from a divorce, it could be from a move, it could be so many things in our lives cause us emotional reaction that we don't feel equipped to deal with. And the big difference between adversity and resilience is when the conflict comes, do we have the capacity to deal with it or not? Do we have the resources to deal with it or not? So we have a conflict. Conflict's going to happen in life. Things that you do not like are going to happen in life. So it comes at you. You feel like you have the capacity to deal with it, and you do deal with it, it can become resilience. You feel like you can't handle it, you don't have the capacity, you don't have the resources, you don't have the support, it'll become trauma. It'll get internalized. Right? So, like one example in my own life was the death of the sudden death of my best friend when I was in eighth grade. There was a lot of other things that went around that were really traumatic for me personally, but she passed away. One minute we were talking about our high school schedules because she was a year older than I was, and I was excited to be back in a school with her. And the next she was gone, brain aneurysm, and it rocked the whole town. It really rocked me because I hadn't had many friends, and not a lot of people liked me, and she really did. Even as I talk about it now, I feel a deep, heavy sadness and heaviness on my chest. And it was very formative for me. I was only 13. It was the first bout that I had had with death. And I had other things happening at that time where I was getting bullied and making bad decisions and all these things. And I had to just kind of repress and move on. I just had to go, just had to go. There's no time to process that pain. There was no time to do anything with it. Just had to move. And so that happens. A normal, or not necessarily normal, it's not normal for a child to die, but a life experience that we're not ready for can cause us the pain that we can't process. And so we function out of a wounded space without even knowing it. And like I said before, and I'll say again, when I was sitting in a jail cell and afterward when I had gone to therapy and I was like, why did I do this? Like, what is going on? So much of my own pain went back to when I was 14, 13, 14, 15. And that's why I keep saying I was 14 years in a felony to figure out what was underneath so much of my emotional structure. Um, when you're in the wounded space, you feel like suffering is random. It only happens to you. Life is cruel. It's not fair. And you ask yourself, like, why me? Like, why did this happen to me? Like, why does this happen to me? Why? You're the victim. You can't handle your life. And so you feel like pain is too much, any pain is too much, and you will do what you can to escape it, deny it, or in some spaces and places, control it, right? So, a lot of times we have people who become workaholics because they can control their outcome better and they can move their pain into something productive. Other times we have people who become addicts because they want to escape so much their reality that they'll do substances to do so. We have people who try to deny their pain and they're like serial relationship getters into ours, right? Serial monogamists, serial polygamists. We have a lot, so much of our crime rate, our painful things are because we have unprocessed, repressed pain. So many people are in the wounded space. So many people are in the wounded space. So if you are in the wounded space and you're trying to have a Christ walk or a spiritual journey or a faith-based walk, you are going to have a hard time. Your faith is going to be very, very fragile, easily shaken. It's transactional. God, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you, right? It's not real. There's no depth. There's no roots. It's just very surface level. Your prayers might be defensive. Like, God, I don't know why you let this happen. I can't believe you let this happen to me. Or, God, please save me. Please make this happen. Please don't let this happen. Please do this. Please do that. Right? Very pleading, very desperate. It's from a victim space. It's from a place like, I can't control my life. I can't handle my life. So your prayers and your faith and your leadership are going to be very, very, very weak and watered down. Not surprisingly, of course, God is going to feel really distant. You're not going to really feel close to him. Life's going to feel probably unfair for you. And he may feel unsafe, right? You might want to put your trust in him, but you don't trust him. You don't trust anybody. You've been really hurt. So you don't want to, right? That is a lot of times what happens. So it's a really hard thing to surrender to him and to be obedient to him because you don't trust him and you might not even like him. You feel like you should love him and maybe you don't even know how to. I will tell you after my arrest, even though I have been a Christian my whole life and I have loved God my whole life and I have wanted to serve him my whole life, I was very much wounded and upset. And like, how could you let this happen to me? Like I was praying the whole time and I was, and it didn't matter. And that was a really hard thing for me to work through from the wounded space. And it felt very unfair. Um, and so what ends up happening a lot of the times when you're in that wounded space, you do avoid responsibility. Like you're like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't know how to deal with this. I don't feel like it's my job to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. I'm not equipped to deal with this. I can't deal with this. And so it is, you don't deal with it. You don't take on responsibility. You don't do sort of the moral thing. You don't have integrity in your actions. Or a lot of the times, if you're very wounded, you try to over control the situation. This we see a lot of times in like wounded toxic relationships. We have one partner trying to control everything. You know, um, not surprisingly, when you're trying to repress emotional pain, you are going to act out of it without even realizing it, and your responses are going to be very emotional. You're going to be very much your choices are going to be emotional. Your or no choices made at all, which is still a response. You're going to make emotional decisions. You're going to react emotionally, explosive. We see this now a lot in the media. We've got a lot of people who are emotionally volatile. They do not respond well. They are reacting all the time. It's very reactive. It's not proactive. It's not responsive. It's not intentional. It's like they have a hair trigger, right? Because they're so hurt, they don't know how to function. And so if you heap any little inconvenience on them, they are apt to explode or exploit or act some kind of emotional way. A lot of times, if there's a wounding space, your main goals are to get validated, to be approved by people, parents, society, by having power, by having money. People very often are living in this space now, right? The validation space, the approval space, the money for control space. People, this is like a very prevalent symptom in our society nowadays. Everybody's seeking validation. Everybody's getting those likes. Everybody's wanting the approval. Everybody wants to be liked. Nobody wants to be respected. There's no real depth. It's just like, please like me, please like me, please tell me I'm pretty, please tell me I'm handsome, please tell me I'm strong, please tell me I'm powerful, right? And it's because people are very, very wounded. It is not a shock that when you really like look into the people who are showing up in those ways, they almost always have mother wounds, father wounds, bullying wounds, social wounds. Like they have hard things that happen to them that they haven't dealt with. Like literally every time. If you watch any interviews with the people, or it's always the way. And so, of course, hurting people hurt people. They unintentionally wound others. I used to teach a course when I was teaching at the high school level called Heroes, Villains, and Monsters. And it was looking at the text from the lens of like people who wanted to intentionally help, people who wanted to intentionally harm, those are your villains, and people who just made messes without realizing it. Those are your monsters. And most people, most of the time, are in the monster space. They're making messes because they are not aware of the harm that they do. That's like Godzilla, right? Godzilla's just big and shouldn't be in the city, and he is, right? And he just destroys everything. He's not trying to destroy everything, he just does. Most people are like that. They're not trying to make a mistake, they just do. And that is something that we see a lot in like the judicial system. A lot of really decent people rotting away in jail because they made an emotional decision. It happens a lot. It really does. So we have a lot of wounded people. You can tell that they're sort of in the wounded space from these thoughts, right? I can't trust anybody. This thing always happens to me. No, I can do it. I've got it. I can do it by myself. I don't need any help. No, I don't need anybody. I'll figure it out. I have to protect myself. I don't trust people. I don't like people. So many people have people wounds. I don't like the church. I don't like school. I don't like work. I don't like these systems, you know. Um, there's so many places we can get wounded, and when we do, we tend to work hard to not like that thing, and put a lot of autonomy on ourselves. I got this. I can figure it out. I don't need therapy. I don't need help. I don't need this. Um, it's a very wounded space. I am sure if you're watching this, you either have that, are that, or know somebody who is like that, right? It makes it very defensive, very reactive, and not very pleasant to be around, right? And so if you stay in the wounded space, and many people do, people live their whole lives in the wounded space, and you can tell because they're bitter, they isolate themselves, they don't have a lot of good connections, they don't have a lot of depth. They're lonely. They keep experiencing the same hardships, same painful things over and over and over again. They feel like they've wasted their life. They have no purpose. They don't really know who they are. They don't really know why they're here. And they don't want to lead. They don't want to step up. They don't want to take responsibility. They are afraid of a lot of things, whether they acknowledge that or not. Usually they don't. And or sometimes they're just trying to control everything. They're trying to micromanage everything, right? Everything has to be their way or it's not okay. It's not safe if everything's not their way. Their way is the right way. And it's like there's a lot of ways to do a thing, okay? Now, you might see this show up in small places, like how to load the dishwasher correctly. A lot of these wounds come out when you're living with someone or trying to like grow with somebody, right? And then I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but it's like when we were dating, you weren't doing this, and now we're married and we're living together, and you're a lunatic. Like, what do you mean you have to load the dishwasher this way? Like, you can load it that other way and it's still fine. It's still gonna wash the dishes, right? Like a lot of the wounds come out when you're trying to grow with someone. So most people, and I want to spend a lot of time in the wounded space because most people are in the wounded space. I would say 90% of the people are in the wounded space. You are probably In the wounded space, if you've never done any work, if you're heavily medicated, if you're addicted, if you are stuck in the world, if you seek a lot of validation, that's a lot of the wounded space, right? So you can stay there. It will not serve you in the long run. The thing to and you really can't witness from this space. Your testimony will fall flat. God really cannot use you in the wounded space. You have to transform that pain. You have to let the Lord be a spiritual and emotional alchemist in your life and start to shift that out. Because the wounded space is the enemy's playground. The wounded space is what Satan uses. Okay, the wounded space, and I'm just gonna remind you, satanic strongholds are a lie believed, a wound unhealed, a habit unchecked, or a mindset unrenewed. Okay, so the wounded space is a satanic playground. Um, so the Lord he'll call you out of the wounded space if you want to come, but you're not really doing much for the kingdom when you're in the wounded space. Not really, not with any depth. Um, a lot of volatility there. You're much easier controlled and manipulated by Satan. So, the thing to do is come out of the wounded space. And so, what does it look like to do that? You start shifting into the witness space. You start getting curious. You start asking questions about why do I do that? And why did I make that decision? And why was this my choice? Right? You start looking at like, I don't want to be in this space anymore. This hurts. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I need something to shift. I need something to change. I am the only one who can change my reality. So I have to change my reality. I have to do something different. And that usually happens if things hurt too bad or if you're super inspired to change. John Maxwell talks about that. I love John Maxwell. I'm a big Maxwell fan. Quoted him a lot in my dissertation. He's like a leadership guru. He's also a Christian. Love that for him and for me. And he talks about there's really only four reasons why people change. And the top two are it hurts too bad to stay the same, or you're so inspired, it looks so good, you wanna achieve that. And so the others is like you've learned so that you want to apply it. Um, and it does take work. It takes shifting your mindset, getting open to new helpful resources, self-help, personal development, transformation. Those are the ways that you shift out of pain into purpose, out of wounded into witness. And so the witness stage is you are seeking meaning actively. You're like, I want this to mean something. Everything is significant, and how is this significant, right? When these things happen in my life, what's God revealing to me? How is God using this? You feel now again, this is when you're firmly in the witness stage. To get from wounded to witness is a process and a healing process and a curiosity process. And if you've never done it, like I said, this is a high level overview. If you've never done it, you might want to consider doing some of the self work, right? So go get a therapist. Go watch more of my Dr. Michelina YouTubes because they'll heighten your awareness. They're free. Go listen to podcasts. Go to the self-help and the development and the personal development section in Barnes& Noble. Go start getting curious about the resources that are out there for you. I have a course that is called Wounded to Witness that specifically is looking to work on shifting you from that space to this space. That's this, like I said, this is part of my coaching practice, part of my job. And so, if you're interested in the Wounded to Witness course, you can find that on Udemy. You can find that if you join the community, EmpowerPath Community, on my link tree, right? So, everybody's at different places and spaces. I like to offer a lot of resources at different price points to help people grow where they're at. But so witness comes after you've started doing some of the work to move out of wounded, right? I'm giving you the checkpoints. I'm giving you the stops. This is not a place to give you the process of moving. Okay, I'm just giving you an overview. But I do have those things in place if you want them They do exist. So once you've started to move, you come to the witness space. You're seeking meaning. You're looking at your life, and you're like, what's God revealing here? You feel pain, of course. You're acknowledging that this hurts. You're working on the regulatory process of emotional regulation. You're working on integrating it. It's not gone. You're aware of it. Sometimes it'll trip you up, sometimes it won't. Like it's just a process of moving through your pain. You become more self-aware. You're like, "Oh, I know why I did that. Oh, I feel this emotion and it tracks back to this core wound." Like for myself now, very easy. When I get frustrated, I already know it traces all the way back to abandonment, right? So I get frustrated and it's because I'm trying to control something that I'm not supposed to control. And it's because I don't trust that the people are going to do what they say they're going to do. And it's because I was abandoned, right? That's where a lot of times trust wounds come from. I know my paths now. If I'm disappointed in someone, it's because of neglect, the neglect wound that I have, right? If I'm disappointed, it's because I had expectations, and I had expectations because I cared, and I cared because I wanted them to pick me, and then they didn't, and I feel neglected, right? Like I know my main paths, and everybody's got different paths. Everybody has different emotions that they lend more easily to, right? And so the self-awareness increases. You're aware of your patterns. You're aware of what you're doing. You are often aware of why you're doing it, right? You're just aware. So your self-awareness increases. You're not afraid to feel what you feel. You're like, I'm not afraid to cry. I don't apologize for it. I don't feel bad about it. Like, one of the big things I see in the wounded space all the time is that people will apologize for crying. That is a big wounded thing. And for me, I'm like, cry. Like babies come out the womb crying. Why do you think you have to apologize for it? In the witness stage, suffering is just part of the process. You're like, okay, like this hurts, but I know it's going to be good for something. I might not know what that something is yet, but I know it's going to be good for something. And you get better at just sitting in things, having endurance, the ability to last through hard stuff, and you're growing your discernment. You're like, ooh, that was godly and God allowed that. That was satanic and I probably could have avoided that. Your discernment is growing, right? Biblically, when you're on a witness stage, you are very hungry and thirsty for the word. You like kind of can't get away from God. Like you don't want to get away from God. So that's something also to be aware of. And so when you are in the witness space, the way you pray and lead is more honest. You are more relational. God feels closer. You talk to him more often. You're like, God, I really wish that didn't happen. I'm like super upset about it, but like, okay. You're just it's not rote. It's not routine. It's like you want to talk to him. He's there. He is. You are more honest in your emotions. So sometimes you're lamenting in your prayer space, right? You're like, oh man, this wasn't the best. Sometimes you are just sitting and being with the Lord. You're surrendered. Like, well, I don't really want to do this, Lord, but okay, I'll do it. Right? You're listening more. You're more secure. You're more comfortable. You're so like you're so comfortable. Well, you're not so comfortable, but you're comfortable enough that you don't have to be like, hey, pay attention to me. Hey, pay attention to me. Hey, pay attention to me. And you can just kind of like let other people have a safe space. And so you have a lot of empathy for them and a lot of compassion in their problems. And you're actively working to help because that's the witness, right? You want to help. Like, let me use my story to help you. Let me see how I can help you. You don't want to overburden yourself because you're still growing and learning, but you're like, hey, let me help. You're coming into the discipline, right? You're disciplining yourself down in the word, maybe in your finances, in your body, in your mindset. You're tracking your thoughts. Like you're doing things that are more disciplined, right? And so that's in the witnessing space. Now, that sounds like because you're in that middle space, but you're still having gone through a lot of growth, right? You're like, I wouldn't have chosen this. Like, I wish this didn't happen, but I've learned from it, right? Like, so kind of, like I said, I was arrested 8 years ago. And at some point in the journey, I was like, "Ugh, I wish this did not happen, but it did, and I've learned a lot from it. I'm better at this for it, whatever." Like coming, you kind of come into acceptance. You're like, this happened, and I'm appreciative of it. I don't really like it, but it's okay. It's part of the reality of the thing. Okay, right? Um, I need help. I know I need help, but I'm not really sure where to go for it or what to do for it. God meets me where I'm at, right? Your perspective has shifted. It should sound like your perspective has shifted, right? Like it's more collaborative. Like me and God are figuring it out. I'm getting help from other people. Um, you know, I don't have to know the answer to know it's good. It may not feel good, but it is good, right? Those are witnessing kind of concepts, right? They're more open to my pain means something. Every test can be a testimony. Now, I'm not in the testimony yet, but I'm working on it, right? That's the witness space. Um, it's a very nice space to be in, okay? I will say there are strengths and weaknesses of this space. People might stay here forever, and that's okay. If you stay in the witness space, some of the strengths of being there, you're more stable, right? You're more confident. Um, I kind of look at it like a process of being buried as a seed and like rebirthed as a tree. You could also use the caterpillar metaphor maybe, but it doesn't work as well in my framework. But in the wounded stage, you're like a seed that has been kind of crushed and buried and broken. In the wounded stage, you're in the dark, you're in the deep isolation, and everything hurts and you don't know who you are. You're in that like seed opening stage. And quite literally, if you think of, like you take a seed and you bury it underground, it breaks open to itself and it might just stay there if it doesn't put roots down and start growing, right? Well, when you have new roots and you've broken the surface and you're like a little sprig, you're in the witness stage, right? And so you're moving toward growth, but you're not your fully actualized self yet. You're not a tree producing fruit yet. You're just trying to survive as this new thing. So you're getting depth and you're getting new root system, new mentality, new mindset, but you're not in your full authority. Right? And that metaphor I hope tracks. I use it a lot. Of course, when you're in warrior, you're like the fully bloomed tree that's producing fruit. I have a whole different framework that I talk about with that. I'm not going to pull it over, but um, in this wounded or in this witness space, rather, compassion is there because you're like, I know I've gone through things that are hard and I feel you, you know? So you have more emotional intelligence. You're not afraid of your emotions, so you're not afraid of other people's emotions. You're like, I've been there and I get it. I feel for you. I empathize with you. Sorry. I know it's hard, right? But the thing is, of course, you're not in your full authority. You're like, is it my place of speaker, isn't it? I don't really know. Like maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. You might avoid because you're like, you know what? It's probably better if I don't. And so sometimes in the witness space, you're just kind of sitting back and observing. Now that's a good skill to have, but again, if you stay there, you get into some passivity and some inaction. So for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, and I always want to move people into warrior space. Warrior space is what it sounds like. You have the full gospel armor on. You ain't playing about the Lord. You ain't playing about your mission. You know who you are. You are ready for battle. You're well apprised of the war that we're in. You know what the spiritual kingdom looks like. You know what the world looks like. You're just well oriented. You are seeking responsibility. You're like, what can I take on? Let's go. Can do attitude, right? Think about the military. Can do attitude. They're trained, they're equipped, they're ready, they're okay with it. Even if they're not okay with it, they're okay with it because they're there to do war. Even if it's hard, even if it's scary, it's like, okay. In the spiritual warriorship, you're asking, where am I stewarding? What can I steward? Lord, what's your will that you want me to do while I'm here in this moment? Now, that can be hard because you probably don't want to do the thing. He'll ask you to leave a job you want to stay in. He'll ask you to stay in a relationship you want to leave. He'll ask you to do something hard that you don't feel like you have the strength to do. We see this a lot in the Bible, like Moses especially. Moses did not want to lead the people out of Egypt. Okay, you can go on my Exodus study on my minister channel. He did not. The Lord was like, I picked you, you gonna go. He answered the call, but he didn't think he was a good choice for it. Doesn't matter, he did it anyway. That's warriorship, right? Stewardship is you're about your father's will, not your own. It doesn't really matter if you want to do it or not, you're going to do it. Your identity is so settled in yourself and in Christ that you know who you are. You don't confuse it with the roles that you play. You know your characteristics really well, and you're just like, hey, this is me, okay? Like I'm no better, I'm no worse. This is who I am. This is how I show up in the world, right? Yes, you have pain and you do not care. Suffering is there, and you're like, okay, I know I'm going to suffer in this life. I know I'm going to have hard things. It's okay. I'm going to move through it. The Lord's going to move me through it. I acknowledge it. I see it. It's not, it knocked me down for a second. I let myself feel it, and we're moving on anyway. And in the warrior phase, you use that pain to teach. You use that pain to grow. You use that pain to alchemize. You're like, hey, this hard thing happened to me. Right? I do this a lot. If you're in my community, in the group coachings, so often, if we have a group coaching, it's something I went through. I'm like, this was hard for me, so I want to talk about it with you guys. This is hard for you too, right? Because suffering is formative. It helps you grow. It helps other people grow. You actually it's a blessing to suffer for the Lord. This was hard and this hurt and this sucked. And you know what? There by the grace of God go I. Just a different space. Warriorship is just a different mindset. It's just a different growth level. You're asking where and how can I serve the brethren? How can I help these people out? Who can I help? How can I serve? Who needs a smile? Who needs a compliment? Who needs money? Who needs my time? Who can I offer things to? Lord, show me. Give me the opportunities. I pray that so often. I'm like, Lord, who can I help today? Bring the people in my path that need help that I can help them with through you, Father God. Jesus' name. Your pain does not scare you. It fuels you. Right? Think about like a warrior. They know there's going to be a painful part of their training, of possibly their mission, of their deployment. It's probably going to hurt. They're going to do it anyway. They signed up for it. Right? Warriorship is I signed up for this. I'm ready. Even if it hurts, I'm ready. Come on, let's go. I'm equipped. I'm not afraid of you. Right? That's real warriorship. Your tests are just testimonies that haven't come true yet or are already being formed. Every test is a testimony. Every hard thing you're going to help someone, it's going to help you too. You are like, hey, I'm suffering through this, and you know what? The Lord's going to use it to help me and other people. Can't wait. It's really, it's something, I'll tell you what. Every good creative does this. They turn their pain into purpose. They turn their wounds into wonderful things, right? The most successful people do the best storytelling of their pain to make it universally relatable. And no matter what, truth in love is the call of the day. You're about your father's business, and he is the king of truth. And you're going to speak the truth to the best of your ability as you know it, as you understand it. And if you are incorrect about something, you're going to have no problem apologizing for it. Like, I thought I was right and I was wrong, and I'm sorry about that. Right? You're very accountable. You're very good at taking responsibility. You want to have control and ownership over yourself, your decisions. You are not afraid to take a stand. You are not afraid to back that stand up. And so when you're in this space, it's not surprising you're in a very powerful space because you're anchored and you're obedient. You are ready for battle, but you're not charging into it half-cocked, right? You are anchored, you are ready, you are at the watch, you are wiser than the serpent, but you are more peaceful than the dove. Like you are in this space, ready to go, but also ready to sit. It is a it is a positioning. Warriorship is a positioning. It'll change your whole life. It's not just a mindset, it's a way of being. Your prayer is aligned, full of authority, and you're good at intercessory prayer. And you are often praying for the Lord's will over your own, right? That's the alignment. It's like, God, thy will be done here. Father God, you know I don't want to deal with this anymore. You know this hurts. You know I'm tired of it, but it doesn't matter because if you want me in this, I will do it. Take it from me if I can be done with it, but if not, let it be. Jesus models this, of course, very well because he's a perfect, authentic steward leader. He's a perfect spiritual warrior. When he's in the Garden of Gethsemane and he's praying that the cup of wrath at the end times passes from him. And the Lord says it cannot, and therefore it does not. And Jesus will pour it out. We're not there yet, but that will happen. You trust him, and it's shown through your obedience and your actions. You're not just saying, I believe in Christ, you're walking the walk that shows you are obedient and you trust him. And you know that God's your partner. When you say I, it's really a we. Me and you, Lord. You and I, Lord. We are a team. So when you say, oh, well, I wanted to share this with you, it's not I want to share this with you. It's really you and I. We, me and my Lord. We're one, want to share this with you. Right? This is when you really move into warriorship. You are good with responsibility without control. Right? You're like, oh, this is my part. This is your part. Together we have this to make. Awesome. It's a really nice symbiotic relationship. I know my role, you know your role, we know what we're working toward. We're aligned in the vision, we're aligned in the process. We're just making it happen. And here's how I make it happen, and I'm trusting you to make it happen. It's a very cool place to be in because partnerships are more equal and unilateral. Because and that comes into the boundaries, right? Like when you know yourself really well, you know your role. You know where you start and where you stop. You know what you're good at, what you're not. Right? So like you don't try to overextend. So I have a lot of people a lot of times who will ask me things like, "Oh, well, something about like the demonic realm." And I'm like, "Okay, so I teach the word of the Lord. My expertise is not demonics. Here's what I know, but I can also give you someone who is more well versed in that, who actually sees into the spiritual realm. I don't, right? Like just you know your role. You don't have an opinion where you don't have responsibility, but you have no problem stepping into responsibility when you know that you should step into it. So you set good boundaries and you make very aligned decisions with the Lord's objectives in mind and your own abilities in mind. So, of course, like you're about protecting people who can't protect themselves. You're about considering yourself in the process. Your communication gets more transparent and honest. It's just easier to think about other people and also think about yourself because you're in that space of caring and wanting to show up and be helpful. And so, not surprisingly, you lead with courage, integrity, authority, clarity. It's not hard for you to see things objectively. People trust your opinion. They trust your insight. They trust that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. They know you mean what you say what you mean, and do what you say. They don't question it, right? And so it's just you have an authority in the way you show up in a space when you are leading from the warrior space. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a typo. It shouldn't be witness. It should be warrior. Sorry. Well, at least you know I typed this all out, which I did. Sorry about that. Warrior space. Did I do that anywhere else? It looked like a warrior. No. Okay. Sorry. So that should say warrior. I'll fix it. I'll fix it, but just know warrior space. Common thoughts when you're in warrior space. This situation, this load, this responsibility is mine to carry. This is what I'm called to do. Here's what we're going to do. I will stand in the gap. Send me. Right? A lot of the prophets in the Old Testament especially stand in the gap for the brethren. Here I am, send me. Here am I, Lord. God already has this figured out. I'm just going to do my part. He could do his part. Right? I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. I'm going through it. Can do mentality. This ain't nothing but a meatball, as my mom likes to say. No water. No, what does she say? No, like water off a duck's back, right? Just flaws right off you, as my mom always says. It's like water off a duck's back because it like falls right off. Or she'll also say, ain't no step for a stepper, right? And that's true. It's not a step. When you're someone that's stepping, no step for a stepper, it's not hard, right? Just keep walking on through it. So it's just certain can do mentalities like, okay, well, what's my part in this? What am I supposed to do? What do I need to do from this? Or you're just like assessing what's my role? Okay, how do I show up? In relationship, a lot of times that sounds like I'll do this a lot with people. I'll say they'll like bring me a thing and I'm like, do you want me to listen or do you want my insight or feedback? All right, well, how would you like me to show up for you here? All right, you're just very aware, very open, very secure. And so there are some weaknesses, of course, but mostly a lot of strengths when you're in the warrior stage, right? You're stable, you are rooted, you are grounded, you have depth, you have purpose, you have clarity, like you are good. You have a lot of confidence that comes from that and a lot of awareness that comes with that. It just they all kind of naturally grow together. You're not really surprised at yourself anymore. You're like, I know I did that. That's exactly. You're very intentional when you're in warrior space, right? You don't pick up a sword and then be shocked you have a sword in your hand. You picked it up intentionally because you're about to go to battle with it. You have a lot of compassion and depth, a lot of emotional intelligence. There are specific sort of emotional intelligence is another lecture I'll have to do for another day. Daniel Goleman is kind of I won't say the father of emotional intelligence, but he is somebody who really kind of put it on the map. And that was in like 1998. He started to really do some work on emotional intelligence, EQ, it's called. And it has to do with the ability to understand your own emotions and manage them, right? And so the there's some fundamental components of it um, that I'll just quickly tell you if I can find it. Um, and so it comes down to motivation, what you're motivated by, your empathy, your ability to self-regulate, your ability to be self-aware, and your social skills, right? And so that's the framework that Daniel Goleman provides. And again, I'm a fan of him. I've got some of his books over here in my library, but um, I'll tell you right now, self-awareness and emotional intelligence go hand in hand. And it's why all the great leadership models call for it. You really are not going to be a great leader if you are lacking self-awareness. You're going to be just like emotionally erupting all over everybody. So, emotional intelligence is very important and is something that you grow as you move into warriorship. Same with vision. You just see things, you just know what's coming. You have endurance until you get there. Emotionally, yes. Mentally, yes. Spiritually, yes. More so than physically, right? And of course, when you get into warrior, you won't ask someone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. You lead by example and you can reproduce the way you show up. Deborah in the Bible in Judges 4 is a very good example of this because the men wouldn't fight and she was like, I'll go into battle. Queen Elizabeth was another example of this. Queen Elizabeth the first, I believe. Queen Elizabeth the first was a good example of this. Like she got on the front lines with her people, right? People can respect a good leader who will do what is said. Half the reason why half the people like me is because I've been through it. Like I'm not just saying, "Oh, I have a PhD in leadership and I know this." No, I've been in the trenches. I've learned through the fire. I've been refined. And people when they talk to me know. Like it's not I don't have just a head knowledge of it. I have an experiential knowledge of it. I do also have a theoretical understanding. I have an academic background in it. I have studied it, but I have lived it. And people like that. They like when you lead by example, when you've done the thing, because it means they can do it too. And you can. If I've moved through this process, I promise you, you can move through this process. If you're not careful, though, when you're in warrior space, you might overfunction. You're so like, oh, send me, send me, send me, that you're like, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. Right? So there's a balance that needs to happen in that it's like, again, if you're really self-aware, you won't get into overfunctioning or burnout. But if you lose sight of yourself a little bit, you may overfunction or burn out. But again, when you're really good, a good like biblical steward leader, you know rest is very important and you see the benefit of rest. Now, when you're in the wounded space, rest feels like weakness. Rest feels like death. And it's one of the first things, like in my Wounded to Witness course, it's one of the first things that I instruct people to start getting comfortable with. And it takes people a while because we're not accustomed to being silent and to being restful. We live in a world that wants to hurry us along. So, rest is a very important component to warriorship. You have to know when to fight and you have to know when to recover. And people do not. Same thing with the language. You have to know when to speak and when to be silent. It's like a warrior space is like a really great understanding of balance and having discernment to know when to do or when not to do. And it's a thing that's a constant. You're constantly weighing things in the balance. And so I have a sort of overview here of all the things. And so and again, this is I just went over this with you, but if you want to like screenshot this or you want to have this, this is kind of an overview and side by side comparison. And so if and it does take self-awareness to self-diagnose this, right? So if you're like, oh, I'm all these things, maybe you are. But more often than not, we're not very objective discerners or judgers of ourselves. And that's why the research demonstrates that 90% of people think they are self aware and 10% of them actually are. And my research as well demonstrated that when I wrote my dissertation, I found that to be the case. And I was so confused when I was running my quantitative data. I was like, why is this happening? And I looked and I saw, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're answering highly here and low here. And the instrument is kind of correcting for that. And I realized that the data I came up with in my chapter 5 of my dissertation was people think they're more self-aware than they are. And then like a few years later, Harvard came out with the same data. And I was like, cool, cool. Because like I said, I do have a PhD in leadership. And so I'm actually in a doctoral program right now for an EDD in Christian leadership. So I'm on my second doctorate, actually, which you can judge me all you want. That's fine. But yes, so you can kind of check this out and have it. So my last questions for you guys are, what stage are you in? And like I said, be objective, consider it heavily. Think about how long you've been there. Now, the other thing too is sometimes we're in a wounded stage in one area of our lives and we're not in another. You can be at a witness stage in another part of your life. So that was true for me. So emotionally and mentally, I was in a very wounded place my entire life for a very long time. But intellectually, I was in a warrior place. I was in a warrior place intellectually, right? And so, and I'm taking that from my own growth model, right? I think personally, professionally, we grow in 8 ways: physically, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, sexually, socially, financially, and spiritually, right? I think we grow in 8 ways. And so, because you can grow in so many ways, you can get wounded in so many ways, you can get hurt in so many ways, and you can experience sort of traumatic things in so many ways. If that's of interest to you, it is in both of my guidebooks. I talk more about it. And so, and again, those guidebooks are available on Amazon. But you can be really wounded in some areas. I was sexually wounded. I was emotionally wounded. I was mentally wounded. Spiritually, I was a witness, was strong, but not strong enough. And intellectually, I was a warrior. Socially, I was wounded so much. Physically, I was a witness. Financially, I was wounded, right? So I was more wounded than I was a witness or a warrior. But even still, right, like you want to be able to kind of be aware of the stage you're in the place you're in. And do you want to stay there? right? Um, and that's on you. That's your call. Now you're watching this and you've been watching it for I think the last hour or so. So if that's the case, you might want to start taking some action. And again, next steps that I have for you to take, because I have laid this whole thing out, I've got a lot of resources out there. Okay. If you want to get more mindset, emotional awareness, go to my Dr. Michelina YouTube. Okay. A lot of videos on there for the last 6 years. I've been recording them. Okay. So go grow your awareness if you want to. If you want to learn about the Bible, go to my minister YouTube. Okay. I have full Bible teachings, line by line, chapter by chapter, books on there that I'm recording daily all the time. Okay. If you want to do some self-reflective work and you want an interactive guidebook, then go to Amazon. Like I said, $7, $10 for these guidebooks. Um, if you are ready to take more aligned, concrete action and you want a community to do it, highly recommend the EmpowerPath community. It is $30 a month membership. It's a subscription. But again, like there's a lot in there. There's live people, there's live teachings, there's courses, there's community, there is access to me regularly. So there's a lot there that is for a very small amount of money. Because I want to try to meet the people where they're at. And even one-on-one coaching, again, that is something I offer. I tend to more so work just with people who are in the community. I've kind of just limited to that, but that's not always the case. But that's just me. There are so many good resources out there. Okay. There's great podcasts and there's wonderful self-help and personal development books in the Christian sector and also in the non-Christian sector. A lot of the times I will, if you are a Christian, I will still recommend secular authors because they are smart in what they're called to do. So, there's plenty of good books I have read along the way that have helped me, many of which are on my bookshelf here. There are great people who help me along the way, coaches and therapists. I've been in CBT, I've been in DBT. I've had, I think maybe like 10 or so coaches at any given time. Like they're just, people need people. And the journey to reclaim self and story is a process. And so to move from wounded to witness and witness to warrior, you do want to take steps, active steps to do so. So I hope this has been super informative for you. I hope it's been very helpful for you. If I can help you, then, just reach out in whatever way. I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm all over the place. Self and Story Analyst is one way you can find me. Dr. or Minister Michelina is another way you can find me. So hopefully, this has given you like a good overview. And if you are interested in moving from wounded to witness and witness to warrior, and you want to look at those courses, I do have them on Udemy. I do have them in my community. So there are places that you can access those as well. So other than that, I will see you guys on the next video.